It's good to have you on the program this morning.
Good morning, Maria.
So how do you see this? Do you think Republicans will need to use the nuclear option here?
Well, I think what's important is that they move forward with the confirmation. The process is really irrelevant. There's not a finer nominee than Judge Gorsuch, and our network has taken it as a top priority to support him. We've done more than 300,000 calls across key states, and that's led by activists, knocked doors, delivered mail, and really tried to put pressure on senators to give the judge an up or down vote. I mean, this is a judge that in 2006 received no one voted against him in 2006 whenever he was up for the lower court. And he has impeccable credentials. And so hopefully the Senate will move forward with it, and we'll have a new SCOTUS Supreme Court justice at the end of the week.
James, when you're going out there and having people try to get support and rally around him, what is the main thing that is the talking point? Is it his character? Is it his temperament? He's got the credentials. I mean, the Democrats couldn't find one thing to hold against him, and now they're using this Merrick Garland situation, given the fact that McConnell even said to President Obama before he nominated Merrick that there's not going to be a vote on it, and then we had an election. We don't even know if Hillary Clinton would have kept Merrick Garland. So what is the main push behind Judge Gorsuch that you're having your constituents talk to their leaders?
Folks are most excited about the fact that he stands by the rule of law, that he's going to not legislate from the bench, and that's really important because we've seen in Washington the balance of powers between the different branches of government really out of whack over the last several years, and so this is clearly an important issue for our network.
James, by changing the changing the precedent in the Senate to get Gorsuch on the Supreme Court without 60 votes, what beast does that unleash for years to come in terms of not just SCOTUS appointments, that they would be extreme partisan appointments, but also the potential that the Senate actually changes the way that it does business and turns into something that looks a lot like the House of Representatives?
Well, I think that's unclear right now, and I would say that you know, not much is happening good out of Washington these days anyway, and Americans around the country feel that. More and more we see partisan gridlock, and I'm not sure whether this you know, continues along the lines of partisan gridlock or if it'll actually be a break in it. I do think the proper thing here would be for Democrats to come to the table and to take a vote, an up or down vote, so that we can avoid that. The nominee himself deserves it. The credentials that he brings to the table, again, are impeccable, and our country deserves it.
James, Kirsten Haglund here. So when you look at the situation, you look at what Democrats are doing, can you talk a little bit, because you're, you know, obviously on the side where you are supporting the Supreme Court nominee, but there are tons of liberal groups that are putting the pressure on these Democratic leaders to block Donald Trump's every single move and every step. So can you talk about that pressure? Because I think a lot of people don't understand why Democrats are doing this. But, you know, with this bipartisanship, is anything ever going to get done here? I mean, is there no positive outlook on this?
Well, I think that we've seen this for a long time, and certainly there are entrenched interests on all sides of issues, and ultimately what people have to remember is that they were elected to go and represent their constituents, and if they're not doing a good job of that, then they're going to be held accountable. And that's what I think our network can do really well, is get out and talk to voters at the door and help them understand, you know, the consequences of obstruction, really.
James, let me turn to health care. Vice President Mike Pence, Health Secretary Tom Price holding a late-night meeting last night with various congressional Republicans in an effort to drum up support for their plan to replace Obamacare. Now, Fox News is reporting that no deal was struck, but both sides are making progress. The Vice President and Freedom Caucus Chairman Mark Meadows commented on the plan. I want you to hear this and get your reaction to it. Listen to this.
We continue to work earnestly with Congress for a new future on health care reform. And the President and I remain confident that working with the Congress, we will repeal and replace Obamacare.
We had a very productive meeting tonight. Obviously, it was fairly lengthy. Most of the discussion were about the two options that we've been discussing. One is a risk-sharing pool as an amendment. There seemed to be a lot more consensus around that idea. than certainly what would be or would not be in a waiver. There were no decisions to made yet.
James, is also the top conservative group, the Club for Growth, expressing optimism for this potential new legislation, which is significant. The group opposed the original House Republican bill. What do you think happens here? Do you think a replacement plan could still happen?
Well, we're going to continue to work with the Congress leadership as well as the White House to get to a full repeal of Obamacare. Ultimately, our goal is to enact reforms that will drive down the cost of health care, because if we don't tackle the underlying problems that are increasing the cost of health care, then we're continuing to subsidize unaffordable care, and that's not a path we want to go down. So we look forward to seeing the exact language that will come out of the White House hopefully later today or very soon.
Right. We understand the goals, James, but what specifically is holding you back? What specifically in that plan do you see as problematic still?
Sure. So the original plan that was put forward was kept all of the insurance regulations and the mandates in place, and that continued to build on the back of Obamacare and increase costs for consumers. And that's the underlying problem there. And so we want to see some reforms that address that, get rid of those insurance regulations and mandates. We do like the idea of giving more controls to the states, and so those are positive developments, and we'll continue to evaluate it as we see the language moving forward.
James, I'm assuming you're talking about the coverage mandates in terms of what insurance companies must cover. Very conservative individuals, congressmen, are looking for exemptions from that. They're also looking for exemptions from the ban on insurers charging sick individuals more. I would argue that the most contentious demand from some is to do away with the guaranteed issue portion of the Affordable Care Act. That is the pre-existing conditions coverage. And the more conservative this health care bill gets, if you really dig into or address the guaranteed issue, I would argue that you then alienate people who are middle of the road.
Well, I think what we'd like to see is both Republicans, Democrats, everyone agrees that we have to do something to address those that are most vulnerable, those that have pre-existing conditions, those that are in poverty, to ensure that they get quality health care. And we want to see solutions that are specifically designed to help those populations, and the current solution doesn't do that. Obamacare gave individuals with pre-existing conditions an insurance card, but it didn't necessarily give them health care. The costs are so prohibitive that individuals have an insurance card and it's nothing more than a piece of plastic in their hand. They can't afford to actually pay the out-of-pocket costs. We need to address that.